Play on words. Rod's back. Rod's back, everybody.
Yeah, boy.
You sound so thrilled, Mike.
Yes. You can hear you can just hear the enthusiasm, can't you? Just, All right, so we are live.
I'm happy you're here, Rod.
Indeed.
Thank you,
guys. Everybody else is just, crickets, fucking crickets. So I'm gonna get a sound mixer. I said I was gonna do that last year, but I'm gonna do it this year, and I'm gonna have like sound effects like crickets for like when Patrick comes on and he mixes.
Yeah,
it's gonna crickets, that sort of thing.
You need a graphic of like a tumbleweed passing by.
Yeah, exactly. Like a big hollowing wind
with my face on it. With
like a cow skull, hanging on a fence.
So, welcome to episode 151 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. I'm bringing together once again for 2 weeks in a row the Over the Hill gang, who has agreed to join us one more time and talk some traditional holiday films. We've got the Ryan Daly immediately to the right, to the right of me, to the right. He's over there. And I've got Hee Haw Bengal, picking and a grinning over there. For some reason, it's really weird that you did that. One of my friends in India sent me a Buck Owens Buck Owens Christmas Carol.
Yes, Buck Owens.
Yeah, that was him and fucking Roy Clark. That was some serious musical talent. I've got back there on the left coast, looking mighty green here. We've got the radical one. Yes, that's right. The Eagles at was it 13-2?
13-2. Got to represent.
13-2. Shouldn't be a problem once we get Hurts back in there. Shouldn't be a problem. We're always hopeful. It's funny. We got Bill there, the Bengals, the long-suffering Bears fan. And then we've got Eric from Hey Internet. Eric here, who's
my pleasure.
Always good company and always cool to hang out with and talk some film. I just want to say on a side comment, as much as people talk about toxic fandoms in movies, those people must never have experienced sports fandom.
God!
Bill, how long? Yeah, they would last like 30 seconds and like
especially around here.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Eagles fans, they fucking throw snowballs at Santa Claus.
I've seen it.
Never gonna live that down.
Fantastic movie starring Patton Oswald called Big Fan. It's about a Giants fan in New York City who winds up in this deadly feud with an Eagles fan through a sports radio show. It's worth checking out. It's the movie that Aronofsky did after The Wrestler that everyone said.
Oh, it's an Aronofsky.
They told him to do something, but do something big, and he just chose to do another indie. It's just a fantastic flick.
Okay, even with Patton Oswald. Okay.
Well, I'm Chicago area, so I know all about hearing about it about the Bears, about the Cubs, and so trust me, I hear it.
The Bears.
Yeah.
Bill, how long have you been asking everybody to just fire the entire Bears fucking team?
Since '86.
Twice, in all seriousness, they had to fire.
They just got a whole new team last year.
Fire everyone.
Fire everyone.
So if you think James Gunn is getting a wrong deal, wait till you're a fucking sports fan and, get in that conversation. We used to have, and Rod will attest to this, you remember during the old Rich Kotite days when Philadelphia sports television would have the coach on the Sunday morning show. So it would be like the Buddy Ryan show or the Andy Reid show or the Ray Rhodes show. And fans would be there in like bleacher style seating, to listen to the conversation and, maybe they'd field a question or two from a fan, probably, pre-approved. But Kotite was so fucking bad that they actually couldn't have Eagles fans in the studio with him because it would have been a fucking lynch mob. They would have killed him. They would have taken him out in the streets and hung him. No judge in Philadelphia would have convicted.
Even in the Eagles court inside the stadium.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, in the old vet, didn't they? Yeah,
They had the
actually
little
had a
courthouse down there.
inside the stadium. That
Oh,
little
really?
mini courthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. The vet was a fucking vicious place, man.
Yeah,
It just looked like a place where, like, like you would be in, like, it looked like an extra from the set of, like, Escape from New York, or like the Road Warrior or something, like some modern day gladiator coliseum or something. I remember the first time I walked in there, I'm like, I was like 16 or 17. Like, what the fuck am I doing in here, man?
Warriors, come out and play.
Yeah. That guy just showed up right next to me. He could have been a fucking Eagles fan, no problem. Jesus Christ. All right, so that aside, I just saw, and I literally finished it about an hour ago. It's a Wonderful Life. And it wasn't. It's my first time seeing it. I had never seen it before. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we got two virgins here, two newbies, two normies.
Last year was my first year seeing it ever.
Last year, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like
one of those movies that, like, I was always kind of on in the background, and I never paid attention to it until, like, I think it was last year, the year before. Michelle and I were like, "Yeah, what the hell? We'll watch it. See what all the hub." I know enough about the story, and I saw bits and pieces of it throughout the years, but I never saw it from beginning to end. So, finally did.
What's wrong with you guys? It's such.
It's one of those things you just never.
Piece of American culture, and it was.
I don't think that anybody here in this.
Us, we're not very cultured, Bill.
Yeah,
but that time
we got culture coming out of our ass. That's us.
It was a long movie. Yeah.
90 minutes of it is exposition and character building.
Yeah, because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Same.
And here's the thing.
What did you think it was going to be?
Well, let me get to that. Let me get to that, because this is how I want. I couldn't figure out the setup, because I had a setup in mind until I saw the movie, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I'm like, fuck, I got 45 minutes. I have no idea how to set this up. Here, let me go back a little bit. About a week ago, I saw A Charlie Brown Christmas, because my Apple TV subscription was going to expire. They canceled Shantaram, so I had no reason to keep it. And there are some things that just hit differently when you're an adult.
Yeah.
And Charlie Brown Christmas is fucking rough in the way that the holidays can be just like the holidays can be rough to people. And you don't pick that up when you're 8 years old.
Yeah.
You don't pick that up when you're 10. You don't pick that up when you're 15.
Yeah.
But there are transitions that people go through in life when you become an adult. And even if you're doing well, and you're not a homeless person, and you're not an active addiction, like I see these guys in Atlantic City every day, even if you're living a relatively stable life, there are lots of things and ways that life can just knock you. Whether it's your first Christmas after the death of a loved one. Or a family member, or or God, God forbid, a child, or something like that, or a spouse, or a parent, this, that, or the other. If it's from divorce, and so you've got your first holiday without, your spouse, or without your children. It's hard, and these are everyday things that happen to people. And so this movie wasn't what I thought it was going to be. That's kind of what I thought it was going to be about. This guy who is just having a very hard time with, almost like a Charlie Brown type of situation. Like he just had this terrible life. It isn't about that. This is about a man who has a pretty good life, but there's this other part of him that he sort of ignored that has been unfulfilled. And maybe I'm looking at it wrong. This is my interpretation as someone who just saw it 45 minutes ago. That there's these other things that he's wanted in life that just kind of haven't happened for him, and he knows they're not going to happen. And he's, largely has done his best to make his peace with it. And he's a good person. He's a good person, and he has a great wife, and he has 3 kids, or 4 kids, and he has, so many friends and people that love him. But he starts to take a couple of hits in life. at a certain time, and all of these resentments that he sort of has in life that everybody, I imagine, has. For these, the life not lived or whatever you want to call it, sort of boil to the surface very suddenly. It's not very suddenly. It's this thing that's been coming for a long time.
His whole life.
Yeah, it's been coming since he was.
There was always a major moment in his life. He's about to do something, which some little thing happens, which totally changes the trajectory of where he's going to do what he's going to do in life, and he ends up doing something else.
Yeah, there are about 2 or 3 instances in the movie, which we'll get into, where, he's just on the verge of taking that step into the direction that he's always dreamed about. And like life just happens to him and just shuts it right down. Yep. And just without thinking, he doesn't fight it. He just goes right with whatever has to happen at the moment, because he's George, what's his name?
Bailey.
George Bailey. Yeah, he's a selfless person. And what we're talking about is Frank Capra's "It's a Wonderful Life." I'd like to start, I guess, with everybody. We'll just go around a little bit and start with Ryan, and then Bill, Eric, Rod. Okay. Give us your impressions of the movie. I don't know if this is a movie we want to go. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll go through some of the pieces chronologically, but if we just want to talk about it.
First, I want to point out, Mike, I didn't know if you noticed this, or Rod, since it's your first time. It was your first time watching it. One of the it's well known now, but one of the uncredited actors in the movie was Alfalfa from our gang.
Yeah.
Carl Switzer. He was the guy at the dance who opened up the pool on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, was he really?
That was Alfalfa? Really?
That was
Alfalfa,
Carl,
yes.
Yeah, he
That's the first thing I noticed when I watched it last year. I'm like,
yeah, it was because I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, wait, that's Alfalfa? And Carl Switzer, I read a little bit about him. None of the our gang actors there was like a curse over them because a lot of them died young. Yep. And Switzer was actually murdered over $50.
Yep.
He was 32 years old. He was murdered over $50. He was like he kind of had a few parts here and there after our gang, but then he became like a dog breeder, and there was some altercation with this guy owing him money, and the guy shot him, and the guy claimed it was in self-defense, but the guy's son was like, no, like Carl Switzer was leaving the house when the dude shot him just out of anger, and he died. But I always, that scene always sticks out for me because it's Alfalfa,
Yeah, same here.
It's like the only time you see any one of the our gang people like grown up, but
he's also got a picture of him shown during White Christmas at the very beginning. Yeah.
Oh, is he in that?
Just a picture of him. That's it. He's like on camera, and then that's it. So it's even less than what he is in this.
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of avoided It's a Wonderful Life when I was little because it's schmaltzy, and it's like no kid wants to like really sit through that. I mean, my mom loves the movie and all that stuff, and I could see their generation watching it. But and like you were saying, as an adult, you can appreciate it more. I mean, and
it requires a certain maturity.
Yeah, and it's a character that everybody can relate to, and they picked the most goody two-shoes actor in Hollywood to play the part. I mean, not knocking Jimmy Stewart, but he's George Bailey. He's okay, but it's a relatable. I think as an adult, with somebody like myself who has the responsibilities of family and work and things like that, there is a lot that resonates, and you feel for this guy. And there are times when I'm sure we all have regrets over things that we could have done differently, or things like that, things in our lives that we wish we could have done. Cause I have those, I mean, it doesn't make me want to drive myself to suicide or wonder, what the world would be like if I wasn't here. But it's an interesting concept because there are people out there who do take it that far. And unfortunately, some people do commit suicide. But
demons get the best of them.
Yeah, exactly. And there are these people, even they could be the most decent person in the world, but they have these demons that eat at them. And I should have done this, I could have done that, I regret doing this and that and the other thing. But this movie really puts into perspective, and it makes you kind of appreciate the small things, in your life that matter, the people that you touch, the people that matter in your life that make a difference. Like, as a teacher, 9 times out of 10, I hear all the time, the students, this student's not going to amount to anything, blah, 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 blah. These kids are losers and blah, blah. I don't say that, but other teachers have like no hope. But you know what? All my lessons could go in one ear and out the other, and most of them do, but they always remember me. And they always remember, like, oh yeah, Mr. Daly's a cool teacher, and this and that, and he tries to help everybody and blah, 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 blah. So that's rewarding. I mean, do I wish things were different in some respect? Maybe, but I'm content with that. You know what I mean? So, it definitely hits home.
Yeah.
All right. First off, remember that this movie is not a Christmas movie. It is just like Die Hard. Yes, I know the final scene takes place on Christmas Eve. 90% of this movie has nothing to do with Christmas. The ending has nothing to do with Christmas. The plot has nothing to do with Christmas. It's just a Christmas tree in the background. So if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, sure, Wonderful Life is a Christmas movie, but it's not a Christmas movie. Because nothing about the whole thing, it could have taken place in the middle of July. It would have been the same thing.
Yeah.
So let's get there. But for my entire life, it was always on TV at Christmas. It was a big deal when it played on TV, and I sat down and watched it a couple times when I was younger. Once with my grandma, and once with my mom, and it never hit me as much as when I got older. Like you were saying. When you get older and you start going through some of the things that George Bailey had gone through, it starts to hit you more. So that's definitely one thing. And Ryan, you are completely correct. It is a movie that young people don't want to sit through. It is corny as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Frank Capra decided to pad this runtime because Rod, you said it's a long ass movie. It is like 2 hours and 15 minutes. It could have been an hour worth of content, but he padded this thing with all this Norman Rockwell stuff. Yeah. Apart from the characterization, a big character in this movie is the United States and the American dream. Capra's, I did the little reading about Capra. He's a guy who came from Italy as a young man and sort of lived the American dream and became this famous director. And this movie especially is just it's like a love letter to the possibilities of living in America. And it's sort of like George Bailey was being a little bit ungrateful, and he learns that gratitude at the end. That's like one of the big lessons of this movie. It's filled with this beautiful Norman Rockwell stuff to reflect maybe an idealized America, but it's still the promise of America, the promise that this guy came from Italy to experience, or my family came from Italy to experience, and they found in some way or another. But a lot of people, when they talk about, the American dream is dead, they ought to watch this movie because it's not about getting every car you want, or getting the job you want, or living in the big house that you want, but being able to live this life in America and, be the captain of your own ship, sort of. And that's the lesson that George Bailey learns at the end.
It has a lot to do with gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude. Not that you don't get everything that you want. But you need it's like that old AA saying, you need everything that you have.
And the third big thing about this movie is it is 100% a Catholic allegory. It is to the core, just like Lord of the Rings, it's coming straight out of Capra's Catholic upbringing. It's 100% about this gratitude. And I want to point out that weird ass, everyone forgets about this, that weird ass Twilight Zone beginning where you're floating through space and you have the moon on a fishing line, and then the galaxies are talking. Every time I watch that, I'm going through. It's weird. It's a Twilight Zone.
It's
was it galaxies talking to the angel? I don't know who they're talking to the angel. I was trying to figure, was that God talking, or was it Christ, or what was it?
It was basically God talking to Joseph for some reason. I don't know why they picked Joseph, but there's Joseph, and then they called over Clarence, and he's this little
Clarence.
Yeah.
Wasn't Clarence the fifth Beatle? Back when he was, remember that old Eddie Murphy Saturday Night Live skit? He says he was the fifth Beatle and he played the saxophone. Oh, really? And he was like superimposed in all the photos. Yeah, it was a classic Eddie Murphy skit. I was the fifth Beatle. There he is, with the fucking bowl haircut. Yeah, it's great.
All right.
Yeah,
so
the timing of
reflections.
The timing of this is also perfect in the way that 34th Street was perfect. It comes right after the end of World War II.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And the United States is like at the top of its game, pretty much. And so you can't ignore the timing. The timing is perfect. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, well, like everyone said so far, when you're a kid, you didn't want to watch this. All I knew about this movie, literally, my parents had the VHS, and my only knowledge of this was Jimmy Stewart was in it, Donna Reed was in it. And I've only seen the part at the very end where he's yelling "Merry Christmas" to everybody. And the only reason why I knew about that scene is because I watched Gremlins every year, and the mom from Gremlins is watching it. That's the only reason that I knew about It's a Wonderful Life.
That's right. She's like, yeah.
And then last year when I saw this, it's 2 hours, 10 minutes, 2 hours, 15 minutes, what have you. And everyone said it. I didn't know what I was getting into, because first, like Bill brought up, what the fuck was up with the Twilight Zone? Everybody's talking to each other. I'm like, is this supposed to be a comedy? This is very cartoonish. And then honestly, all I knew about was the whole Clarence Angel gets his wings stuff. And not to jump ahead, that's what, 20 minutes of the movie?
It's a very small part.
At the very, very end.
Yeah.
So I had no idea between God and Joseph talking and not seeing Clarence till the very end, what's going to pad for 2 hours. Right. And I couldn't believe how much I really enjoyed, like, the character build up and all these, the writing and this and that. And it was all unexpected. It was a very unexpected surprise to me.
It's got to be the most fully formed characters in cinema history. And you get everything, and you're totally invested by the time the actual action of the last 20 minutes happens.
And what I really liked is again, we only knew that George was going to end his life, and then Clarence was going to show what happened if he didn't exist. It was a really good way to show a person's importance to everybody in their life, but also to help show themselves how important they are. You know what I mean? Because we've all had that moment where everything's boiling over. We sadly, we might take it out on our wife, yell at our kids when we don't mean it. Then we realize how much of an asshole we look. It's not their fault. And then we just take off, go to the bar, whatever, to cool down. So that hits home too, because like I said, we've had the weight of the family life on our shoulders, trying to provide for everybody. And, we don't want to take it as far as Bailey wanted to, but it hit home because, like I said, I've been there, taking care of the family, and then explode on the wrong person. And then you realize how important you really are when you're able to reflect. It just took, an angel to do it for George. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, well, Rod, go ahead.
No, I'm like everybody else. The last half hour of the movie, I thought it was the whole movie. I thought it was just a little bit extended more. They talked about some spilling bullshit for a good 2 hours or hour and a half, and then the end of the movie is what the whole movie is about. And the end of the movie, when you talk about Twilight, I thought it was a whole Twilight Zone type situation, him running and then the angel there, and all I want to hear is do 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 in the background, all this going on. But I was generally, after the first But the galaxies talking, I was ready to turn it off and say, "Listen, I'm not doing this shit tonight." No.
Weren't
No.
those
You know what I mean?
prayers, though?
The galaxies talking put my mind in the sense of the whole Children of Corn ending with the whole.
Don't start right, all right?
Yeah,
let's keep it positive,
you know what I mean?
right?
It put me that mindset. I'm like, okay, if they didn't like that, what's they gonna say about this shit? But
I'm setting Rod up to fail over here. Rod thinks I'm setting him up to fail.
But then I started watching it. Then I started getting into the character, Jimmy Stewart, which I love his performance. Some people might think it might be over the top, but there was a lot of great moments there. Like when he was at the table with his father and he told his father that he was proud of him. Moments like that, or when Donna Reed, his wife, they're on the phone talking to that guy, and then you see the close-up they have before they wanted to kiss, but they didn't. There's a lot of great moments, a lot of funny moments in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The building of the character was great. I just took totally, like Mike was saying, and everybody else. When you're younger, you can't relate to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can't relate to what's going on in his life and stuff. But now that I'm 53, I'm on the back end of my life, and being able to see all the people he touched, and those little by little things that he touched, and then seeing the end, how it affected the whole town. This one person and his life and what he did for the whole town. And once to find out he wasn't alive, he was dead, and he went back and he saw how, it was basically he turned to 42nd Street and back in the 70s, you know what I mean? Where there's strip clubs everywhere and bars up and down the street, and people died and people didn't survive, and his employer, the pharmacist, he ended up not going to jail and stuff like that, and makes you feel made me want to look back in my life and all the people that I touched and all the people that I helped out, and
you appreciate yourself more.
Excuse me?
You appreciate yourself more. It
makes you appreciate myself more. Yes, yes. So, like I said, I wasn't really looking forward to watching this, but now that I have, it's something that I want to pass on. It's like something that you have to speak out of against, because it's an incredible script, incredible writing, and the whole thing when it came together, and I was shocked that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's not a movie you forget. The movie sort of starts out with this sort of voiceover of these various people that are praying for him.
Yeah.
Please, help my friend George. He's struggling. These different voices. Dear God. I think one guy's praying to the Virgin Mary. That this man. And one of the things, the recurring theme in all the prayers was that he never thinks of himself. You've got this selfless man, George, who. Hold on one second. Sorry. Got a call. I can't take it right now. But I mean, this selfless man who, he's a good guy. His father, they're pictured with him. They're having dinner, and I guess that's supposed to be an 18-year-old in 1946. That's what he's an 18-year-old. And owns like a bank or like a loan office or something like that. I never quite could understand what it was, whether it was just a small bank or something like that. And
it's kind of like a credit union. It's a credit union designed to help people get loans who couldn't ordinarily get them, so they could buy homes.
Yeah, poor people. And he's kind of like this, hero of the working class. And George admires his father very much, but at the same time he has these dreams to go abroad and to see the world and to do these fun things that an 18-year-old would want to do. And so I'm even jumping. There's so much that happens in this film, because you even see them starting out as a child, as children. And, his little brother goes through the ice while they're skating that one time. And, he saves him. He pulls him out, but because of it, he loses the hearing in his right ear.
Yep.
Before, like, this is like 10 or 15 minutes into it. He's already saved his brother. He saves the pharmacist that he works for, who accidentally put the wrong medication that he was going to send out to a child.
That was a rough scene.
Yeah, because his son has died. He just found out that his own son has died, and he's so distraught he's not paying attention to the chemicals that he's mixing.
He's drinking too.
And he's drinking. He's drinking, and George doesn't deliver the medication, and so by the time he gets back to the pharmacy, the man's slurring drunk. He's like barely able to stand up, and when he finds out that George hasn't delivered the medication, he just starts beating the shit out of this little kid.
Yeah,
it's an awful scene to watch.
He's hitting him in his ear.
Girlfriends, man.
You see the blood come out of his ear.
Yep.
Yeah, it's awful. And you realize he tells him, what he's done. And I won't tell anybody. He's just such a good kid. And the man just feels so awful. He just hugs him and he starts crying because he just must be a mess to begin with. And now he's just attacked this little boy who probably just saved his life. If not literally, then figuratively.
Saved him from going to jail for 20 years and becoming a bum.
Yeah. He just
homeless man. Yeah.
So within 15 minutes, George has already altered the course of two people's lives.
Yep.
His little brother and this old man. And neither of them know it at the time, but you can see it from these perspectives. He grows into this good guy. With a good father who just doesn't want to stay in that little town. And he's having that that conversation with his father, and he describes the place that he works as that shabby little office.
Yep.
And you can see it kind of hurts his father's feelings. And he doesn't mean anything by it, but he wants something different, for himself. There's this recurring theme throughout the movie that, the plans that life or God has in store for him are better than what he thinks he wants for himself. Yep. It's that old Kierkegaard argument from Either Or. If you ever read that book, and that's basically the theme of that. If anybody wants to pick it up from there. Okay, well, I guess I.
One thing. George Bailey has got this awesome ingrained moral compass, and even though he wants something, his moral compass keeps him from being the most selfish person in the world. And you see that when he's talking about his plans, and I want to build buildings, and I want to build bridges, and I want to go exploring. Even when he's talking to young Mary, he's being such a douchebag about it. When he's talking to her about the coconut, and he's just putting her down. She doesn't know where the coconut comes from.
Oh, that's right.
You can't look at National Geographic. It's only for people who are going to go exploring. It really is a story about him, his father's moral compass that was instilled in him, taking over and guiding him to the right place, where if he was left to his own devices, he would have become the biggest douchebag in the world.
Yeah, it kind of overrides everything at the proper moment. It just overtakes him, and he automatically goes on the right path because he's, he meets. That scene. Whoever said it was full of Norman Rockwell. That scene in the diner where he's in the pharmacy where he's a small boy with Mary. It's just like, holy shit, like this is completely fucking and she's just like, I'm going to love you forever, and it's like set up, and you're like, oh god, I can't believe I'm watching this, but it's so damn cute, at the same time, and they grow into a couple of sorts. I think in that scene, with his mother, where she's trying to put them together, and Mary's home, and this, that, and the other. Hold on, I'm trying to find a photo. Someone else, you guys just carry on.
One thing I love about this is the fact that a lot of times, like nowadays, you see like parents who don't follow their dreams, and what happens if they don't follow their dreams? It takes it out on everybody. Takes it out on the kids, on the family growing up. They're always throwing it in his face. He makes these decisions, and his dreams are squashed, or his dreams are passed on to his little brother. The little brother lives the life he is, but he doesn't regret anything he does. And I love that about him. I mean, he has his little moments here and there, but it doesn't like cloud his life. It doesn't cloud his friends, his life, his family. And I really enjoyed that about the movie. He keeps on taking these big detours in life, but it's just the way it is, just the way my life has panned out. Not until the end, where it all kind of
boils over.
Over all at once. Yeah.
I think he's set up for that through childhood trauma. You can't forget the point where he's a little kid and Potter, just right in front of him, calls his father a loser and a failure. And he's like, no, my dad's not a failure. I think that is set in him to where he doesn't want to be a failure. Almost like I don't want to be a failure like Potter thinks my father was. And he wants to prove to the world.
Yeah, I'll show you type of thing.
So when even though he doesn't really regret all his selfless actions and being this family man and the best guy in town, when Potter starts to win, that's when he really is like, oh, I am a failure. I might as well take my own life. It's not so much that he's regretting that he didn't get to go to Borneo or whatever, but that this utter fuckface called his father a loser, and now he's living out this loser thing that's been set in him since he was a 10-year-old boy.
It's funny. It's funny how he didn't break until he got faced with about go to jail for his rest of his life. That'll break anybody. You can be the best person in the world, but you're faced with about to go to jail for 20 years, and your kids and family's going to be raised without you. That'll scare anybody, push anybody over the edge.
Yep.
There's an interesting thing that we've talked about, in this past 30 minutes or so. And it doesn't happen in modern films anymore. There's always a recurring theme, and here's a picture of him and Mary. But there's a recurring thing that happens in film nowadays where people always fight and alter their fate.
Yeah,
that's the common trope now. You can change your fate. Change everything. And the idea that people instead embrace their fate is kind of an old thing that you don't see much nowadays in film.
True.
The last time we saw it, now I don't know if anybody else caught this movie except for me and Ryan, was The Northman.
Yes.
Where he just sort of he has to do what he has to do to save the future, which means he has to sacrifice himself.
Right.
And all these different things that have happened where his uncle kills his father and then he becomes deposed. Like, and he just has to live with it. He becomes a sheep farmer. This idea that you just kind of have to, roll with the punches, and you're not going to, change the narrative of, what's meant for you is a very old thing. And you don't see it a lot in films. It's all throughout this film, though,
we sort of dropped the whole thing of the Greek tragedies and having that be a basis for our literary awareness, because a lot of the themes in Greek stories are, the more you fight your destiny, the more you're going to suffer. And we've sort of given that up for the hero's arc where, you start out in one place, you go through battles, and then you come out at the end, which is also a valid arc and a classic literary trope, but we've forgotten the other tropes that were there.
The hero's journey, from Campbell, and you read about, but nowadays in screenwriting, people are saying something else, and unless you find a very different type of film like what Eggers did last year or at the beginning of this year. You don't see that very often, but it happens through here. But, again, more than, hold on a second. We got a couple comments here. We got Divine Willera. What's up, Mike? Saw this movie last night. Never noticed how Sam Wainwright is a very interesting character. He was a source of jealousy, a love rival for Mary Hatch, but at the end, he was the man who saved the day.
Yeah,
he gave George $20K.
Hee-haw.
Yeah, what's up, Mike? Thanks for stopping by. And we got Goraphobe.
Hey,
what's
bud.
up, man? Thanks for stopping in. He's always loved this film. Yeah, this is my first time seeing it, man. Me and Rod. So, we're just, it's a lot to process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to process from a first time watch in my 50s. Watching it as a first timer. If I saw this when I was 16, it'd be in one ear and out the other.
Yeah,
same
I'm
here.
and I started watching it when I was a teenager, and I even had my students did a production of it, and I sat there for 3 months watching the story play out every single night. I'm still processing what went on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like I said, at a later date in life, these things hit differently, just like Charlie Brown did.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, Jesus, he really is having he doesn't understand what the big deal is at all. When I watched that last week, and he doesn't have any friends, and he has one friend, and everybody else just kind of only comes around him when they want something from him, or they just berate him publicly, at every given opportunity, and you're just like, fuck, he would be like major depressive order nowadays.
Yeah.
If you were to watch a chart, because it's just awful. His existence is just, it's awful. Gore said, I seen it first in 98 when I was about 25. So, okay, yeah, that's a pretty good place to start. That's not too bad. But, there's also these recurring things that happen throughout the movie to show you just how fucking lucky he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his wife is just like one in a million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She is just.
It's Donna Reed.
That wedding day scene, that honeymoon scene was incredible. What she did.
Oh man! But I mean, from the beginning, this woman who's loved him her whole life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she came back this childhood love, which now you would think is kind of hokey. Or podunk or whatever. Like, Jesus, you never did anything but come back to your hometown and marry the same, that sort of thing.
Right.
But I mean, the way it's done here, it's just, she's like an angel.
Mm-hmm.
She's just wonderful. And, he's like she's like a really good salve for him.
You might not have noticed it on the first watch, but when his brother makes him dance with Mary, and they have that sort of thing across the gymnasium, it was like a Back to the Future thing.
Yeah.
When you watch Violet, his other love interest, watch the disappointment and the anger on her face when she knows she loses him.
I remember.
She was always after his ass too.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a great scene because you can watch her. Just her soul is leaving her body. She's so upset. Boom, goes in for Mary.
But yet there's a scene in the movie where he actually tries to really talk to Violet, and it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work. Whatever he says, she's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" She's like, "I'm not going hiking with you. That's 10 miles."
Oh yeah.
She's like a princess.
Yeah.
Violet's like the pretty princess.
What's so cool about this? There's a lot of funny moments in this movie.
Oh yeah, there is.
You know what I mean? Like the in the bush where she gets her robe taken off and she's in the bush and he's walking around. It's like, wait a minute, I got a chance over here to see you naked or whatever. Or walks around. Or that scene with Violet where he's there walking and she's like, "Are you crazy?" And then it pans out and then you see 50 people around them listening to the conversation and what's going on.
Yeah, and she's always got 2 or 3 guys circling her. She loves she sees him as a catch, but it's not going to work. And I think what she wants is just the attention from maybe the most eligible bachelor. It's the idea of the thing rather than the reality. Whereas Mary is just she's just perfect for him. She's perfect, perfect, period.
Rob brought up a really good point. I didn't expect, I knew it wasn't going to be 100% serious with, we call it the Twilight Zone scene, but there really is a lot of good comedy sprinkled in. You know what I mean? It's not, I love the scene where his buddy comes out drunk, you know what I mean? And he walks off camera You know, they're leaving the party. He walks off camera. He like trips over garbage cans and says, "I'm okay," and stuff like that. Which apparently I was seeing that noise was not done on on accident. Somebody on set knocked something over, and the actor ad-libbed, "I'm okay." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they kept it in the movie. I also love the scene where it's the romantic dinner, and you have the two guys out in the rain singing to them. They're singing to them, and then one of them kisses the other guy on the forehead. The guy gets so pissed, he just smacks the top of his top hat, on him and stuff like that. The comedy sprinkled out here is just so good, which you need so it's not like overly sappy and overly depressing, at the end. And I just we're jumping ahead. I thought Clarence was just freaking hilarious every time he was interacting.
He was good
with him. He was a lot of fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so what ends up happening is he never leaves the town, but he gets the perfect wife.
Yeah.
And the whole wedding scene is just, they get married and like that scene where she's talking to Sam Wainwright. And like he's so conflicted because he's just miserable and he hasn't been able to leave. And then, she's drawing and he's trying to pull away, but then he realizes he kind of wants to stay with her more than he wants, to leave. So they end up getting married. And there's so much information in this. There's also when they make a wish, there's the Make-A-Wish scene.
Oh, yeah.
And what Mary ends up wishing for is for him to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think almost immediately, like his father has a stroke. And dies.
So Mary killed the father. Oh my God.
No, it's not that, but it's just, things that you ever heard that saying, like you can get what you want, but it's not going to be the way that you think it's going to.
Yeah.
And that, he stays, but it's at a cost.
He works in mysterious
free.
ways,
Yeah. It's not free.
Right.
And so, he ends up having to temporarily take over the loan office or, whatever it was called. He keeps the place running, and then they're just about to leave for their honeymoon. And I guess the Great Depression hits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mary's like, don't get out of the car. Like, don't go. She tells him, like, don't go. Just stay in the car. Let's go. Let's go now. Can't do it. He has to, his compass ports him directly towards all those people that need their money.
Mm-hmm.
And if he hadn't done it, the whole thing would have fallen apart.
And wound up in greedy old Potter's hands.
Well, again, it's just another miracle because they don't have any money. They don't have any money. And at that moment, his perfect fucking wife holds up all the money that they have in the world.
Yep.
So
and
$4,000?
It's $2,000. I have $2,000. And the first guy is like, well, I need all my money. But then everybody else after that says, well, I have $300, but if you can give me 20.
Or the one lady asked for $19.50, and he says, like, bless your heart.
Yeah, he kisses that lady. Yeah. It's just, there's a community there in a small town that just wouldn't exist in a city. And all these other places that he wants to go.
Yeah.
But he doesn't see it. He kind of doesn't see how lucky he is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think I really didn't see it. I didn't see those little moments. I didn't connect little moments until I saw at the end, where then I saw how he helped all these people out and how these little moments changed everyone's life.
Well, I mean, they end up naming that whole housing community after him. They call it Bailey Park.
Yep.
It's Bailey Park, and all these people that have been living in these Potter, is that his name?
Potterville.
Potterville. Potter's Field, which practically is kind of a graveyard. He's like renting these shanties to people.
Yeah.
Whereas George has given them the opportunity to take a loan out and actually purchase their own home. And so all these homes end up being called Bailey Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think someone said a line that the houses are worth more, like twice as much as what they're paying for them, or something like that.
So something along those lines. Yeah, something along those lines.
I really,
because Potter sees them as just little people, as people who shouldn't even be able to own those homes. He's the wealthy elite, and he's looking at them like, these immigrants and these poors, they shouldn't be able to have this break, because he's thinking about the bottom line, where Bailey's thinking about them as people.
Yeah. And he's almost like go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was going to say, I really like Potter as a villain. He's a really good villain. I mean, and he's he's a total douchebag, and he's a realistic villain. And he was actually the basis for Mr. Burns on The Simpsons.
Yeah, he was.
I can see that.
He's just a complete dickhead. And Lionel Barrymore is great in that part.
Yeah, he is.
He would, from the great Barrymore acting family, but yeah, he's a really good villain. And this movie has a lot of Christian themes in it. There's a lot of it's pretty overt, I mean, how God's in the movie, all this stuff. I think a movie like this, I think we might have broached the subject a little earlier. A movie like this wouldn't fly today, because of those kind of themes and stuff like that. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see a movie with these overtly Christian themes of this guy who, everybody loves and all this kind of, nobody, it wouldn't work at all.
Well, the lead would have to be a female. The lead would have to be a female. And her husband would be like, she'd be telling him, he'd be weak, and so she'd either have to leave him or straighten him out too. On top of that, and because
she'll leave him for another woman.
There's that there's that scene with Mr. Gower, where there's that sign, ask Dad. He knows, because he doesn't know what to do about the mistake, and he doesn't know about the mistake in the pharmacy. With the prescription, and he doesn't know what to do about, Mr. Gower's son dying, and how upset he is, because he's like 8 or 9 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's that sign, ask Dad, and Dad is neck deep in it with Potter at that time. You probably couldn't have a sign like that now. It would be ask Mom.
Yep.
It would totally be ask Mom, and she'd be a single mom, one of these sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, this is a movie from a different era.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, going off what Ryan said, one of the things that annoys me so much about people's reaction to this movie, or at least some people's reaction, is that they're always talking about how it's an anti-capitalist fable. That's one of the things that people keep writing about. It's not.
No. I haven't read any of that.
It's like you said, it's more religious. It's more about charity and giving of yourself rather than having the government take over and do something. Yeah. I understand Potter is sort of the embodiment of the worst aspects of capitalism.
Yeah.
The sort of the greed and the avarice and the overdoing of the bottom line over people. But it's not capitalism versus whatever. It's a religious look at, we can do better than
I can see Potter with his magma hat on.
Say that again, Rod.
I can see Potter with his red magma hat on.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, he's not that bad, Rod. Jeez. Okay.
He's close, man. He's close.
Oh, shit.
All right.
I think you know what side he would fall on,
No, well,
it's interesting because
that's open for debate, but okay, yeah.
I never heard that the argument about it being like anti-capitalist and stuff. That's interesting. I mean, of course, some numbskull probably would write that, but I never read that. It's interesting.
Well, I mean,
for like 2017, 2018, it's going to be as politicized as the times are.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a movie that shouldn't be politicized, at all.
The thing of it is that, on top of all this, what we realize is that, like, George Bailey makes no money.
Right.
Like his entire, this didn't occur to me until about an hour. And well, no, I mean, it comes out towards the end of the movie or towards the second half of the movie as he's married now. And they said, just so you know, George never leaves. They tell you that like halfway through. George never leaves the town. Yeah, he gets married. He had, next thing you know, his wife has a kid, and then they have another one, and next thing you know, they have 4. And so George, is doing what George has always done since he was about 18 years old. And life, put him on this path. But what we don't understand, and what I didn't understand at the time, and it starts to come out in little hints and flickers here and there, is that George only makes about $45 a week.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All of these things that he's giving to others so that they can, build lives for themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas George's possessions are very meager. They have that house that they've slowly been rebuilding. That top of the bottom of the banister just keeps coming off. It drives him crazy. But his wife is doing everything in her power to make it beautiful. To make a nest for them.
It's life on the grind, man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's rough.
Trying to live the struggle every single day.
Yeah, and there's that one scene where what was his name? Sam Wainwright comes to visit, and he drives away in that fine car, and then George turns around and he looks at his car.
Yep.
And you can see it starting. You can see it starting. Because he's like, "Fuck, man." I could have been. I think Sam offered him an entry-level job.
Yeah.
But he stayed there and married Mary.
Invest in plastics. Invest in what made. Yeah. He. Matter of fact, it was George's idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The soybean and the plastics, whatever you said is George's idea. I have an investment in you. Come on, and just to put some money into it. He's like, no, not right now. I can't do that.
He doesn't have any money to invest.
Yeah, he doesn't have any money to invest. 2, he ends up getting married, which I think was this weird sort of dynamic where, I think he felt he was like putting the checkmate on Sam not to get married, so that also probably put in his mind a kibosh on any sort of business partnership. I don't think that Sam really felt that way, because when Sam was talking to Mary, he had like 2 other women around him in the background.
Yeah.
He's drinking and hooting it up. But Mary's mother is making it sound like, hey, we're going to get you 2 together. And so it just never comes to fruition. But years later down the road, Sam's doing great.
I think it's the whole thing with parents. Parents want you to marry rich, and Sam's doing great. So mom's wants to, and George is low life. He just works at this little credit union and stuff. He doesn't make money, so his mom naturally doesn't want Mary to marry George.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you don't get everything, because I don't think Sam was particularly interested in Mary anyway, necessarily. But she ended up with a very good husband.
Anything else?
Huh?
He's always more interested in showing up George in a friendly competition than anything else. So if he was playing Mary, it would just be to show up George. He had no real interest in.
Yeah, and it probably wouldn't have been a marriage that worked.
Right, it'd be over real quick.
At least not in the, like we've been saying, the Rockwell kind of way. This, almost melodrama kind of love story that they have. But then, they survived the Depression, and these sorts of things. And then World War II comes to pass. And then, it's another knock on George, because he can't go off to fight.
Yep.
Because he's 4F because of his ear.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, I remembered watching Band of Brothers. And in the beginning of every episode, they had the real veterans from the 101st Easy Company talking. And they said like 4 guys. One guy said 4 guys from my hometown killed themselves because they couldn't. They 4F'd.
Oh wow!
They were like some sort of medical. It was like a huge disgrace. If you didn't go to fight after, and especially if you lived in some sort of small town, or something like that. And of course, his brother Harry goes off.
Yep.
And the police officer goes off, and the cab driver goes off. And everybody does their part. And there's George like running air raids in middle America where no planes ever show up. You know, so that's another ding to his pride.
It's funny that part didn't hit me that hard nowadays because you don't think about the 4F thing. But I could just imagine how people felt watching that movie when it first came out during that time, and seeing him tag 4F and what it meant.
It must have been a blasphemy not to go.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I mean, if you haven't seen that, you've seen Captain America.
Oh yeah.
You know, the original Joe Johnston movie. You know, people were like, you know, he went to like 4 different recruiters. Trying to get himself in the army. You know,
it was all because of something he couldn't. It was all because of something he couldn't control either. You know, an injury he got as a kid.
Yeah, because he gave to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, all this giving is costing him, and maybe he doesn't see the full picture. His brother wins the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yep.
You know, and at this point, it does start to lay on. You know, they're laying it on kind of thick, and you're just like, "Fuck, man, this guy just, he just can't get a break." You know, it's just like there's no big payoff for George.
What I like about Stewart, though, I like how he's still trying to keep it going for himself or his family, but you can still see the little bits of frustration every time something good for someone else happens. He just kind of, sometimes you'll see him. He just like slumps his shoulders just a little bit, and then he's back to the grind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he pushes it. He pushes it down.
Mm-hmm.
He pushes it down until it just comes boiling up.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, and then he just has that full meltdown in his own house.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's I mean, the $8,000 goes missing, which I would I think at one point Potter tries to buy him out. And I remember writing in the notes, is he wrong to turn it down? Because what he was honestly offering him, he's like, you're making $45 a week.
Mm-hmm. He offered $20,000 a year.
$20,000 a year at a 3-year contract. I'll send you to New York. You can do meetings. Hey, take the wife to Europe.
Yeah, but he knows that's the devil's bargain.
Yeah,
right there. He knows that. He chooses.
Well, he's going to have to sell the loan office. Yeah, and it's not even about that, but he has to sacrifice himself again to keep everybody else viable.
Mm-hmm. And he has to sacrifice to the guy that called his father a loser all those years ago.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what he remembers, the handshake.
Mm-hmm.
When they shake hands, he remembers that. And it comes up. But again, there's no big payday for George.
Mm-hmm.
Virtue, it's one of those virtue is its own reward kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There really kind of isn't, any big, salary bump or anything that he's going to get out of it. Mary doesn't seem to care, though. She seems completely happy, living their life together. But then, the $8,000 comes up missing.
Yep.
And that's where I said Potter went from a snake to like the devil.
Yeah, he you didn't think he was a piece of shit before. Now
I thought he was just like a sort of mean old robber barony kind of guy, just, but isn't nailed down. He had to grab it, but that was the first time I had ever. Well, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but it's the first time I remember him doing something malicious.
Yeah,
it was like a malevolent thing that he kind of did. He knew all the trouble that losing that money was going to cost.
Yep.
That he might send Bailey to jail. Or his old uncle to jail, and he did it anyway.
In a more grandiose sense. It's kind of like finding a wallet on the ground and picking it up. And what are you going to do? Are you going to turn it in with the money, or are you going to, just keep it for yourself? Because it wasn't something this money just ended up in his newspaper on his desk, in his hands. It wasn't something that he saw the money and he grabbed it. No, he ended up opening the newspaper, so it's $8,000 there, and figured out. It's like, I'm going to watch them squirm.
Well, he was going to do more than watch them squirm. He was going all the way.
Yeah,
he was going to use that to destroy them.
He did. He called the police on them.
Yeah, called the police on him. He called the district attorney, issued a warrant for his arrest. The bank examiner was there. Yep. And that's where the shit just hit. That's where George hits the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything.
Bank examiners are coming to what bank examiners are showing up to do an investigation on Christmas Eve at like 8:00 at night?
Probably ones that Potter sent. I'm sure Potter's having him harassed.
Probably.
Like all the time,
really.
Christmas Eve. Hey, the IRS is here. Pull out all your receipts. Every single one of them right now. And be quick about it.
But on top of that, he gets punched and he crashes his car, which he didn't need.
Well, I mean, before that, what ends up happening is, like, he jacks up his. That's when I knew he was in meltdown, when he jacked his uncle up out of the chair.
Oh
Yeah.
Where's the goddamn money? One of us is going to prison, and it isn't going to be me. Like, he had just lost it, and then he goes home. And that's where the wheels just completely come off.
See, that's another thing. It just reminded me, where we said, the whole 4F thing, that's something that was out of his control, not his fault. This $8,000 was not his fault. He's going to jail because someone else lost the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, none of these things that have happened to him, everything that's happened to him has been out of his control. His father having a stroke. All of these things that have happened to him, because
all of it's just destiny.
This is his destiny. Yeah, this is his destiny. And what ends up happening, I mean, he starts dropping it on his wife. Why do we have to have all these kids? And I'm just like, holy shit, this guy is fucking, this guy is losing it. He just goes into a full meltdown, and you realize that this has been coming probably for about 15 years.
Yeah.
At this point, it's been about 15 years or whatever, because some of those kids, those aren't 5-year-olds anymore. He's gotten there, and they've got 4 of them. So this has been coming for a long, long time.
Yeah, the poor little girl playing the piano, and Jesus Christ, when he's going off on them all.
And the way he goes off on the teacher.
Holy shit! Yeah, was it Mrs. Oliver? Mrs. Welch.
Mrs. Welch. She goes off.
Yeah.
And that's one point where I realized he didn't have that much money, because he says my kids wear secondhand clothes or something like that. Yelling at her, saying, I'm not as rich as the other parents there, and we wear secondhand clothes, but you can't treat us like that. Or you can't treat my daughter like that. You can't send her home with no clothes on so she can get sick.
Yeah, all of his insecurities just come boiling up. And again, like I think Eric was saying earlier, sometimes that just happens.
Everybody's got their limits.
Well, they say the big things, but sometimes someone just steps on your foot. And if you've been having one of those days, or a week, or you've had a bad year. Some people have bad years. It's been a bad fucking year. I've had a rough year. I remember that line from Royal Tenenbaums, where at the end, Ben Stiller, he just starts crying to his father. He's going, I've had a rough year, Dad. Because his wife has died, and he's, trying to hold it together with the boys. And that's what I meant kind of about the holidays. Some people are just, they're having a rough time of it. And
but he was having a good day that day. They're about to have a party. He ends up giving what's-her-name some money, a few dollars. He was having a good day until he found out my money was lost, and that's when
losing $8,000 have a bad day,
Yeah, losing $8,000 in 1946, losing $8,000 today, wouldn't be be good. But I mean, you think about it, Rod. I mean, how long? This is like the straw that broke the camel's back. That's the way that I kind of look at this. Since 18 years old, since he's been 18, he hasn't really been able to do anything he's wanted to do.
Yep.
And now everything that, that has been out of control has just sort of, blown up in his face. And the kids are like pulling at his leg the minute he comes in the house, and, hey, listen to this. And, they're banging on the piano and this, that, and the other.
Excuse me.
Yeah, excuse me. What? I burped. Oh, okay. You can see him like, Jesus Christ, just don't let me lose it here. And it reminds me of this story of this guy. He said one time, he had come home, and he said he had just he had 2 stories. He said he had an awful fucking day. He had just had an awful fucking day. and he wasn't in the mood. He almost dreaded coming home because he knew the kids were going to be running around like maniacs, and he just like, and he said he hit the door, and when he walked in the door, like a mentor of his had come to visit and was sitting there talking to his wife and talking to his children, and man was much older. And he said he opened the door, and the man looked at him, and I guess he must have seen it on his face, and he said he pointed and said, "Get the hell out of here right now." And he's like, "What the fuck?" It like snapped him right out of it. He's like, "What the fuck?" But this man is 30 years older than me. Is kind of my mentor. He's told me to get out of my own house, and he stepped out. He's like, "What the fuck is that?" And he walked out, and he goes, "I saw it on your face." He goes, "But I want you to know, like, they've been waiting for you to come home like all day. Your kids have been waiting for Dad, talking about it for like an hour and a half. And you were just going to come in there and just start laying into everybody."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay. Sorry about that. All right, let's try this again." And then he said he walked back in, and that was okay. But I mean, he has to go begging to Potter.
Yeah.
And Potter just rubs a fucking dirty soiled diaper right in his face, and just tells him, "You'd be worth more dead than alive." Just mocks him, and
that was hard.
Yeah, let somebody else take it from here. You guys go on ahead.
Bro, that was the scene. Like I said, like you knew Potter, what he was an asshole, but anybody can be an asshole, but he, like, I think it was you, Mike, who said the word malicious. He knew what he was doing, and he was enjoying it. You know what I mean? It's like a cat playing with a mouse before it eats it. You know what I mean? Type of thing. And it just, if you didn't hate Potter before, you really hate him now. And that's what I think is good writing and good acting, because you want to hate the villain. There's villains that we love because they have cool charisma and stuff like that. But there's nothing cool about Potter.
Right.
You see him to the last time you see him, he's a piece of garbage, and you want him to get his comeuppance. And sadly, I've only seen it a couple times. I don't think you hear anything about him getting any type of comeuppance.
I thought I remember reading something where there was an alternate ending that he had died.
It was a post-credit
It was
scene.
a Saturday Night Live skit where they show up at his office, pull him out of his wheelchair, and beat the living snot out of him.
Oh, that was funny. I remember that. Yeah, that was funny.
To look for that.
But I think
Frankenstein
I read something that they had filmed that there was a part of the script that had said like he had died or something like that, but I think they cut it out. It was just kind of like a throwaway line, like a thing, so they just cut it out. So his fate is unknown, but
his fate.
I wouldn't mind that ending.
Well, here's the thing about him. His fate is that he's a miserable, twisted, bastard who has no friends.
Right.
Well, I was going to say
nobody cares about him.
I was going to say he's Scrooge if Scrooge hadn't learned his lesson.
Yeah.
He's
Scrooge before Scrooge learned his lesson.
Yeah, and yes, if Scrooge hadn't changed, are
there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?
Yeah.
That's who this guy is.
If they're going to die, they better do it. Yeah.
Decrease the surplus population. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. So, I mean, he gets bopped in the nose by Mr. Welch, and and that's where Clarence comes into it. Now, I don't know. I wasn't an enormous Clarence fan, but I could be looking at it wrong. What did you guys think of Clarence?
Well, Clarence, from the beginning, they said he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Right.
Yeah.
God even made jokes about that.
I think this guy.
I think Clarence kind of reflects George a little bit, in that Clarence isn't even aware of his own importance. He's kind of a bumbler, and
he's naive.
Yeah, and I think he learns a lot about himself too through the course of it.
I think that's what God says about him in the beginning. He's innocent, he's innocent like a child.
Yeah.
He doesn't see that part of himself. So, I mean, what happens from here? I mean, Clarence just George is ready to jump.
Yep.
George is going to jump for the life insurance policy, which probably is voided in a suicide. But I don't think George is thinking clearly at this point. He's already had a few, and he's been in a bar fight, and he smashed up his car, and he's just kind of on the run from himself.
Yeah.
And
at that point, there's more bacon than the pan can handle.
He's
ready to end it.
Yeah, he's had enough, and that's where
Clarence.
It's an interesting thing in that Clarence jumps in because George is so set on helping people, he sort of forgets to kill himself.
Yeah,
he knows the more would say, "Save this guy" instead of killing yourself.
It immediately goes like right out of his head, and his thought becomes, like defensive.
And we'll see that's why again. That's why I like George is like even in his darkest moment, he's going to kill himself. He's still going to help somebody.
Yeah. And even
that's why Clarence
selfish desire gets undermined.
Yep.
He can't even kill himself.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I love how Clarence.
Like nothing is in his control.
Yeah, Clarence says he jumped in first because he knew George would save him.
Yeah, and he says something, suicide's against the law in this state, and he goes, Clarence is like, it's against the law where I come from too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the because that's interesting when you think about it at the beginning, where the stars are talking to each other and they're like, today's the day where like George is going to decide, what it is that he wants to do. So like all of this seems to have been prearranged.
Yeah.
All of this has been mapped out in advance. In the very first 2 minutes of the movie, it's today? Yeah, we better somebody get down there to help him. And just like we've talked about in horror movies, where, when we start to get into the sort of demonic thing, where we talk about it's just influence. Here, we have a different kind of influence. It's not control. But you're just going to get somebody who, maybe can, get you through those tough steps. Just when it's hardest, that's when you're not going to be alone. And so they send him Clarence, the most unlikely, but I don't know who would play Clarence today.
It'd probably be like someone like Kevin Hart or somebody like that. You know what I mean?
They would make it.
Jesus.
They would make it
God.
They would make it a total
George going to be played by The Rock.
I don't know if it would lose its meaning or not. Who knows? But
Clarence reminded me of what's his name from Cheers.
Coach,
the bartender, not
Coach.
Coach, yeah.
I can see that too.
Coach. Yeah. Maybe that's who Coach was modeled after.
Yeah.
Coach was kind of an innocent guy too. I mean, he's just, So, I mean, eventually it gets to the point where, they're in the house and, they're trying to warm up and they're soaked and, it's freezing. And
that guy was funny. The one,
the bridge conductor or whatever.
Bridge conductor.
She would give them.
And he fell back. He was like, okay, wait a minute, really?
AS2, Angel Second Class. And that's when he was just like, I'm fucking out of here.
Yeah.
Later.
These guys here.
Yeah. Hold on a second. We got Gore. He says, under it all, everything to live for, and forces him to see what really matters. What he has that others maybe do not have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what he has is sufficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a lesson, like you said, it's a lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
What you have is sufficient. But George is,
Now we have Back to the Future happens. So he shows up and sees.
Yeah.
I was getting that Back to the Future 2 vibes big time when I watched it. Yeah.
Here's an aside, or now that we're talking, is that one of the great trilogies, Back to the Future? I've heard people recently list that as one of the.
I've never seen the third one. I've never seen the third one.
I'm surprised you haven't, Ryan. You like westerns, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole flying train thing is, but I never saw it. I don't know. I think I had kind of lost interest in Back to the Future by then. Because I saw the first two and then it took a while for the third one to come out, and I think I just wasn't really interested in seeing it.
Isn't the second one where Biff gets Isn't the second one where Biff gets the sports almanac from the future and he lays all the bets?
That's the third one.
It's the second one. Biff becomes a millionaire, and he's bought the town. He's got the high rise and everything. And that's why I said when he's in this George is in this alternate reality, and it's Pottersville, and it's like Biff took over Hill Valley, and then that's how I was taking it. Yeah,
Biff may even be worse than Potter. I don't know. There's a few more dastardly villains. The only person worse than him is Shooter McGavin.
Oh, Shooter's the man.
Fucking Shooter. Shooter's turn.
Yeah.
All right. What's that guy's name? Chris McDonald?
Yeah.
Chris McDonald. Oh, Jesus, what a movie. All right. So, I mean, so, George basically says, I wish I'd never been born. Because he's drunk still, and he's just feeling sorry for himself. So Clarence is like, that's not a bad idea. Okay, boom. Wait, what just happened? My lip doesn't hurt. I can hear out of my ear. Well, you've never existed.
My clothes are dry.
Yeah, and it's just this laundry list. I checked off about 10 things, that have just drastically changed. And
his brother died in the alternate one.
Yeah, the one of the first things is that his brother never lived because he wasn't there.
He drowned.
I'm sorry. His brother never survived that fall in the ice because he was never there to save him, and that was something I hadn't considered.
Mm-hmm.
When because I had seen, I figured, well, the town's going to be dark, and his wife's going to be married to some asshole or something. I figured how it hadn't even occurred. I had forgotten all about the brother.
Which I think is smart. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but that's why we have the brother scene in the very beginning, and then it's a 2 hour and 10-minute movie. You don't remember that until the very last 10 minutes that his brother could have died because you had all that space in between.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All that setup pays off right in this 1 5-minute thing where he's going through the town and seeing all the things that never were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's the payoff for all of that characterization and setup and expository sequencing.
Yeah. You immediately get the vibe that the whole town has changed the minute they enter the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of this polite family kind of restaurant, supper club, bar, restaurant, whatever, it's immediately
like a joint or something.
Yeah, it's like a
friendly old martini's not so friendly now.
Yeah, the bartender. It's Nick's, and like Nick is an asshole. And he wants to fight the customers, and you're just like, what
we only sell hard liquor here, that type of stuff.
And you're just like,
a couple places like that.
Yeah, you feel like you're in Deadwood or something. You're just like, what the fuck is happening?
Bill Hickok's sitting there.
Was it Al Sweshington? Is Alan here? What the fuck's going on?
Yeah, like an old West saloon.
I really felt like I was in Deadwood for a minute. I'm like, what the fuck? And then Mr. Gower. He wasn't there to save Mr. Gower. Mr. Gower went away for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 20 years in prison. You don't think over the course of your entire life. Like, what is something you may have done when you were 10 years? Not anything necessarily as big as that, but something you may have done when you were 10 that you've just fucking forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
what do they call it? The butterfly effect. What happened? One small thing on one side of the world can trigger something huge on the other side.
Yeah, it's a tornado. And like that, I had forgotten about Mr. Gower.
Me too.
He doesn't have any legs.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about.
Yep.
The Pottersville isn't a community anymore.
Nope.
Mm-mm. It's like a
42nd Street, New York, back in the 70s.
It's bars and taxi dancers and like strip clubs, not strip clubs, but you know what I mean. The whole place is
not a community anymore.
Yeah, his mother doesn't recognize him because she's just like a bitter woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess she lost her one son and she doesn't have another.
And then I'm sure Dad still died of the stroke. Because whether George was alive or not, that was going to happen. So she's been by herself for how many years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did say that he went to the credit whatever his business, and they said it shut down 20 years ago when he died. It never survived.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And who went to? Somebody else went to an insane asylum. Someone else went to a mental hospital.
Yep.
I mean, the whole place has just fallen.
Violet's getting arrested. I don't know why Violet's getting arrested.
She's a hoe.
Yeah.
Is that what it was for? Just for being like that?
Yeah, that was like a brothel.
Okay.
Yeah, she's become like a prostitute, and it's like a corrupt town.
The only one I don't buy is Mary, though.
Yeah.
I mean, why? Just because George is there, she's never gonna get married or have any other suitors. I don't know.
She becomes an old maid at like what, 35?
Yeah, exactly.
She's a librarian.
Yeah, I guess you were an old maid at 35.
Okay.
But I mean, the idea that she was only made for him, and with him not being there, there's no replacement for your destiny necessarily.
Yeah.
What's meant for you is what's meant for you, and there's no alternate. There's no B choice.
The one that really got me was the fact that since he didn't save his brother wasn't able to save all those people in the war by shooting down those planes.
Yeah.
So I think that caused like 17 people to die or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a hell of a thing. He ends up, running into the police like really fast. That one cop just starts shooting at him in the middle of
Jesus Christ! Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus Christ! This is like Training Day, that old Denzel movie,
Yeah.
One had to duck
Denzel
down
just
in the
starts
car.
shooting. Huh?
Yeah. There's one lady who had like ducked down behind the car because he just pulled out his gun and just started firing at George, who's just running down a crowded street.
So I mean, George recants.
Yeah.
He's like, let me, and again, George prays. There are several scenes like when George first starts to break down in the bar. He's like, show me the way.
Right.
Show me what to do. I'm out of cards here. I don't know what to do anymore.
I want to say that scene. I did another, some research, which is like IMDb trivia or whatever, and that was a one take thing because Jimmy Stewart was himself suffering from like PTSD. I think he was in the military, and he that was his like purge himself. And the director, he got it on film, but he asked him to do it again. Jimmy's like, no. I can't do that again. If you want it to be as real, you got to use that. So that was kind of neat learning about that as well.
Yeah, for all his great moral compass, I don't think in the whole film Bailey recognizes God. He might not even be a sort of church-going kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, he said that when he prays. He says that, I'm not one to be praying or to talk to you about this, but if you can help me out now, which attest to the realism to this, because a lot of people are like that. They're not going to pray. They're not going to do that until they're faced with death. And suddenly, what else are you going to do? You're going to go ahead and pray. You're going to try to see if you could reach the big guy.
Yeah. Well, George gets his wish, and he's snapped back into existence. And just like Scrooge on December 25th, he's filled suddenly with the spirit of life. Because he realizes not just how lucky he is, but how important he is.
Yeah.
I think for the first time he sees it, because all the things that he realizes now were things that were always true throughout the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
But he sees the tangible impact that he's had in people's lives.
Right.
And how lucky he is to have played a role like that.
Yeah. His grandiose need to be a big, important person somewhere else, disappears, and he realizes that he is a big, important person in his community.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, I'm a big, important person right here.
I have to admit, that did touch me at the end. Okay.
The reunion
all
is
the
very
people
cute.
came in, dropping the money off. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cheering up a little bit there.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, George.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's just, you know, he's running down the streets yelling Merry Christmas to people. He even goes into Potter's window. Merry Christmas, you know, like all of the resentments have gone away.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
You know, because nothing will eat at you like resentment.
Right?
You know, resentment and anger, you know, and these things that, you know, you hold against other people, you know, in this case, maybe, you know, the people in his town, or maybe even his wife or his children, and they have no idea, you know, that you feel this way. It's only eating away at the person who has that resentment.
Right.
And so, you know, he's been released from all that, you know, or he's just let it go.
Yep.
And he comes back, and in what may be one of the best pay it forward scenes I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his wife again, who's just a miracle. She's like an angel.
Yeah.
She really is.
She's
like
his other guardian angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like here in his day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, immediately went out and I guess found out that the money was missing, and just like tuned into people, you know, please go out and ask for help. You know, something that never would have occurred to him, or he would have been too proud to do it.
Right.
And just proceeds to have the whole town turn up for him. And just lay all that money on the table. And when you think about, you know, what happened during the Depression, where, you know, he just gave people enough to get by and they stuck with him. Mm-hmm. You know, and, you know, his reputation in the town and his father's reputation in the town before that, you know, all of that means something. That's his payday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that's the payday that he's wanted his entire life. It's just, like I said before, not exactly the way that you think it's going to turn out.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's one of the best scenes that I can recall in a very long time.
But I appreciate, I'm glad I saw this for the first time last year, you know, later on in my life, because in this world right now, it's a lot of it is, you know, arguing and, you know, fighting over, you know, whether it's religious beliefs, politics, what have you, you know what I mean? We're in that, you know, that world. And it was real nice, and for me to see a happy ending, you know what I mean? You really are touched by it, you know. In this world of
happy ending,
I appreciated it more, you know what I mean? It did, you know, touch me, you know, and stuff like that, and I felt happy for George, and it's, you know, it's kind of missing in a lot of films nowadays. You don't really have that happy ending that isn't, you know, so schmaltzy or anything like that. You know, that you do feel good for the person that it's happening to.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have the rarest thing, and I think this is why movies like Top Gun did so well. They have a clear hero.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been focused for about 20 or 30 years now on the anti-hero.
Yeah.
You know, the person you root for who still does rotten fucking things. I mean, I like the Punisher as much as anybody.
Yep.
But, you know, he's kind of an awful character.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Whereas to some, you know, as opposed to somebody who, like, you know, Bill has been saying this entire time, has a clearly defined moral code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, never steps outside of it. Almost never does anything for himself.
Yeah, well, like we said, he was in his darkest moment. He's still got to help somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of a character just, I mean, maybe they're making him in indie films, but
doesn't exist anymore in Hollywood.
Yeah.
No one,
that's what, you know,
that's what this world is, or present world is too cynical for a movie like this. I mean, there's not, you wouldn't, if they did this movie now, you wouldn't have a happy ending unless it was presented as a comedy. I mean, then you would have a happy ending, but it's just because
we don't have comedies anymore.
Yeah, they're
too risk averse. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
It's comedy would be a minefield nowadays.
And all our heroes are being undermined by subverting expectations.
Yeah.
It's a one of a kind film.
Yep.
As much as I think that, you know, we're starved for this kind of content, which again, you know, I'm glad we did this between this and 34th Street last week, you know, with Santa. And that was just that rings with me, you know. And this will probably, you know, I'll be spinning this around for a while too. But I'm still buzzing about Santa, you know, and him just bopping that guy in the fucking head, you know, with the umbrella and berating that fucking drunk Santa. You know, you're a disgrace. You know, like what the, you know, that sort of thing is just missing from, you know, film nowadays. And you know, hopefully, you know, at some point, you know, we'll get back to that kind of thing. It will be good. I think that type of movie would make a lot of money nowadays, although I hate to bring money into it almost. It seems like it almost soils the conversation.
That type of movie definitely wouldn't be released in the theaters. The type of movie would be like a Prime Video, Netflix type movie or something.
That's the whole reason why Star Wars was so successful when it came out, because it was like a beacon of light that showed up in the middle of these really dark and just dark and cynical times, you know. And all of a sudden, there's this clear hero and the hero's journey, and there's clear bad guys and good guys. It was so simple and harkened back to, you know, the Buck Rogers and the simpler times. I think if there was a movie, it doesn't even have to be a Christmas movie. The same thing. If there was a good drama with a character as defined as George Bailey to show up now, it probably would be successful.
Well, I mean, that's why the closest we've gotten to it was Top Gun. It made over $1 billion this year.
Wow.
Made over $1 billion. He had his #1 movie at 60 years of age.
He's still jumping out of planes. That video where he's thanking the fans and he's jumping out of the plane, parachuting.
Yeah. He's another one. I mean, at 60 years old, he's a product of another time. You know, not the modern action star of today, neither The Rock or something like that. I like The Rock. Don't misunderstand me, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, I mean, is there anything that we missed in the movie that we should get to?
I'll say one thing. I know I mentioned that I was kind of disappointed that Potter, we didn't find out he got his comeuppance. Now that I think about it, and like what I said about the ending, I think if we found out something happened to him, it might take away from the happiness. So I'm kind of glad we didn't find out if he was caught embezzling or died or something like that, because I do think it would take away from George's moment.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again, Eric? I'm sorry, I missed it. I apologize.
No, sure. What I was saying is, earlier I was disappointed that Potter didn't get his comeuppance, but in retrospect, and we were just discussing the final scene, I'm glad that we didn't hear about what happened to him, because it would take away from the happiness in George's moment. You know what I mean? If we just got you
don't think it would have made George's moment more glorious, more like, he's the bad, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, where the wizard's finally melted. You know what I mean?
No, because that's not how George is. He wouldn't take pleasure, even if it's
Well, I'm not saying he wouldn't take pleasure. The audience would take pleasure. Kind of like I said, kind of like the witch being melting, and made Dorothy look that much more spectacular.
But George gets his victory.
Yeah,
George's victory is kind of over himself.
Yeah. You don't need to see Potter defeated. You know he's defeated because George got the W.
Yeah, and George's victory is over George. And that's the best victory that anybody can have.
Right, and even George, do good to your enemies. Even at the end, he's like, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter," and he goes running away, and there's Potter just like, "Happy New Year." He's still miserable, and that's a win.
That's
true.
Everyone who wants something bad to happen, these miserable.
And like like I was saying earlier, virtue becomes its own reward at the end. In that he lives a good life. And he's got and what's that one saying? The richest man in the world. And his brother Harry comes back and toasts him and says, to my brother George, the richest man in town, or the richest man in town.
Yeah, and that's the line they're referencing in the end of Bill Murray's Scrooged, when his
that's right. Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the point now where we rate the movie. As you know, this show has a rating system that goes from 0 to 5, 0, 0.5, 1, all the way to 5. So 0, for example, would be I'd rather spend the rest of my life wearing wet socks than watch this movie again.
I always look
all
forward
the way
to
to
0 descriptions, dude.
Thank you. As opposed to 5, where this is cinema. This is the highest ideal. Ryan, we're going to go with you and then just go right around.
All right. On the grounds that it's cinema, and on the grounds that it's almost required watching for everyone at least once in their lives as an adult, I'd give it a 5.
Okay.
I personally, I've seen it once. It's one of those movies where you've seen it once. You can stay away from it for years and then come back and watch it. It's not something I'd be scrambling back to every year, like on my Christmas rotation. And because again, with the schmaltz aside, it's one of those movies that, once is enough. The impact is enough. It hits. You can watch as much as you want, but for me, it's once is enough. And, if I want to go back and see it again down the line sometime, I will. But it's like I'll catch it if there's nothing else to watch, kind of thing. But by no means does that, dilute the importance of this movie. That's just my opinion on it. So
yeah, there were similar opinions about Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
It's not in anybody's heavy rotation, but
no.
It's a fucking classic all time.
Yeah,
fucking great movie. Hee Haw, what do you got for us?
I want to give it a 5, but I think some of it could have been cut a little bit. Probably. I'm probably committing a grave sin in saying it, but some of the Norman Rockwell stuff, the celebration of America and this idealized America, it makes the runtime go a little bit too long. So I'm going to give it a 4.5. Just going to take points off for that, but everything else, the characterization, the cinematography, the humor, it's just about a perfect film. But for me, having seen it a bunch of times, it gets harder to sit through the entire thing every single time because it's just a little bit too long.
Okay. Eric, what do you got?
I'll tell you this. Saw it for the first time last year. Really enjoyed it. And when you said you were doing it, I was excited to rewatch it. And I still enjoyed it this last rewatch. But kind of like what Bill said, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. They could have cut out at least 20 minutes. I understand that they made films long back then, but I think we could have gotten the point with 20 minutes cut out. Like I said, I love the characters. Any chance to look at Donna Reed, you get a point for me in that book.
Beautiful.
I'm going to give it 4.5 just because I love the comedy, but the part where in the Twilight Zone part that we keep talking about, where the stars and the angels are talking in the very beginning, kind of doesn't fit with the rest of the film. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to knock it half a point for that, but I think 4.5 is well deserved.
Brad, what do you got?
Nothing different from anybody else. I'm giving it a 4.25. 4.5 because it's too long. You could knock a good 20, 30 minutes. I think you can get this. You can an hour and 10 minutes. You can get through it and have the same effect. A really short, a short film. You can have the same effect and make it powerful. But that beginning part that Bill's talking about, that Twilight Zone, the skies talking, that brought it down another quarter of a point. So, so I'll say 4.25. But yeah, I mean, it overall, like it's the first time watching it, I enjoyed the movie. Enjoyed the story, but I don't know if I'm going to sit through this again unless another 10 years from now or something like this. It's a background movie. It's a movie that I wouldn't mind having in the background, Christmas Day with family, hanging out and watching 10 minutes here, get caught up eating dinner, watch a little bit of while it's on.
Yep.
Just give me the Christmas spirit and happy, and then watch something I've always enjoyed watching, that ending part. I watched the ending part tons of times, but the whole movie, no. I watch that ending as much as possible, but the rest of it, no.
Okay. That brings me to me. I initiated these ideas for traditional movies last year when we did Christmas Carol. And then we did 34th Street last week, and now this. I'm starting to have a greater appreciation for them in light of the movies that I spent a long time watching before. The Die Hards or the Lethal Weapons, or the more modern, sort of, nod and wink. This is a Christmas movie kind of thing, going on. I tried to get into Krampus recently, and I didn't get all the way through it, but I fell asleep, and I rented it for 48 hours. And so I nodded off about 45 minutes into it. But these older classics have much greater value, I feel, than the other movies that I've been watching for a very long time. Seeing 34th Street for the first time last week, this movie for the first time, I'm going with 5. It's my first time I've seen it. I don't know that it's a movie that I'm going to, again, put into heavy rotation.
Yeah.
But not for any negative reasons. The scenes in the beginning weren't long enough for me to be put off. Because it's like 2 minutes. So, it wasn't any, enormous thing. If there was anything I was put off by, it was the actual Clarence character. But the story, because he was just so damn goofy. He seemed like he almost stumbled into these things. Like they sent him down there and he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And I'll figure, he's like figuring it out as he goes.
They sent him down to get rid of him.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, like, okay, and, I don't know that they set him up to fail, but, but
he was in the rotation. It was his rotation next.
Yes.
Yeah, he was up in the batting order. It was his line in the batting order. But again, with the ideas that, you've got this guy, George, who just kind of accepts his responsibilities, accepts his fate in the face of denying himself, the more selfish things that, he really wants, that he doesn't, try to change his fate, or that, they didn't write a modern thing, where he does succeed in changing his fate. These sorts of things. I find that has value. A lot of good dialogue. I think it's a great piece of writing.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of writing. It's not necessarily all that well shot. No. But it's just a fantastic story. And Capra wrote this, I think.
Yes.
And it's just it's one of the best screenplays I've ever read. One of the best story arcs I've ever read, or had a chance to witness on the screen. I'd give it a 5. Yeah, I don't know that it's a perfect movie, but it's so fucking good. It's still a 5, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So 5 for me. 5 for me.
It would have been a 5 for me if they made that. If they won that beginning part. If they had stayed. I would have rather seen them in heaven, like a Clash of Titans. You know what I mean? Just up there, just showing them talking about it and having. I don't think
they did. I don't think they ever, especially back in '46, they would have tried to create that sort of image, that imagery. Would they have? And that would have been pretty controversial, like casting God, or casting that sort of thing. That wasn't done.
Maybe
even in Houston's film where he did the Bible. You had some of the characters, Abraham or Adam and Eve, and these sorts of things, but not God, not any of the angels or anything like that. You didn't do that.
Well, George Burns played God.
Yeah, 40 years later. But I mean, even if you get to DeMille, it's a burning bush.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't do that kind of thing. So yeah, and so of course, the first person we end up with is fucking George Burns. Thanks a lot.
It's too bad John Denver died, because at some point, they would have had some kind of movie where he played God at some point.
Who?
Yeah.
John Denver, who was in Oh God.
Yeah, Oh God, yeah.
My
favorite interpretation of God was actually Charlton Heston, where he played him in that Paul Hogan movie, Almost an Angel. Did anybody ever see that?
Oh, I saw that years and years ago.
He's like a career thief, but he's like a bank robber. And one day he's just standing on a street corner. I think he's casing a bank, and this little kid runs out, like shoots past him at the intersection, and just runs out into the fucking road because he's a kid and he does dumb shit without thinking. And so, without realizing it, he jumps into the road to fucking pull the kid back, and he gets hit by a car. And he gets killed, and he goes
the
to
town's
heaven.
search for another body for him or something like that.
No. They send him back, but what ends up happening is God is Charlton Heston.
Yeah,
God is played by Charlton Heston, and because his last act as a person, even though he's been a scumbag his whole life, was to save somebody else, they have to let him in. Like he finds a loophole to get his way into heaven. And Charlton Heston's like, "You're the first scumbag we ever let up here." It's fucking great.
I don't think no one tops Morgan Freeman for me. Morgan Freeman is.
Yeah.
I never saw Bruce Almighty.
It's fun.
Yeah,
it has its moments. Yeah, it's
and then
funny.
it's an interesting choice. Alanis Morissette in Dogma.
That too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
I forgot about that. Jeez. That was one of his.
Who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What the fuck happened to that guy's head? Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the more interesting of Smith's movies.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I liked certain parts of that. I liked Chris Rock as the 13th Apostle, Rufus.
Rufus.
You ever met the man? Met him?
I just
owes me $10.
That character, the one character just annoys the shit out of me. Jay, the way he talks and stuff, he just annoys me.
Jason Mewes? Yeah.
Yeah, he annoys the shit out of me.
You've never seen Clerks?
No.
Oh, Jesus. I've never seen Clerks.
The only Kevin Smith movies I ever saw were Dogma and that other really bad one with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. Where they had
Jersey Girl.
That one.
Jersey Girl,
really.
Yeah.
But see, the funny thing is, out of all the Jay and Silent Bob movies, Ryan's only seen like the fourth one, and that's probably why he.
Yeah.
I'm not a Star Wars fan.
I'm not big into Kevin Smith though. I'm just not big into Kevin Smith. Like a lot of people.
Because you've seen all the wrong. You haven't seen any of the good movies.
I will say this, I saw Clerks 3, and I did not have any interest in seeing that, and I was blown away. I really, really enjoyed it.
All right,
really.
I want to try. We had some stinkers for a while.
I haven't been a fan of Kevin Smith's post heart attack. I'm not gonna lie, Clerks 3 really got to me. It was really, really good.
That He-Man thing he did.
Bust was bad. Red State was just plain awful, which sucks.
That one he did
was pretty good.
Oh, Cop Out. That was the one with Bruce Willis, right?
Yeah, I liked Cop Out.
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry.
All right. So I guess this is as good a place as any to bring it to a close. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
It's only a few days away. 2023. Jesus. When you say
the year we make contact.
It's been a weird fucking year. And I'll tell you, this is a content creator. It hasn't been a great year for film, at least in my opinion. It hasn't been great. We've had a couple of standout films that largely were ignored, I thought, and just a lot of fucking substitute teachers.
Yes.
I know I've seen a lot of people posting like their top 4 or 5 favorite movies, and I'm like, I can't even think of 5 fucking movies.
I can't either.
That like I really would.
You mean modern or just overall?
For the year?
This year, 1999, man.
Yeah, this was a bleak year for cinema. We had some good movies.
I would never rank it by year anyway.
Well, no, I mean, like, what were the best movies you saw this year? Like, think of it that way.
In the theater,
you guys
probably
didn't like this, but I love Bullet Train. I think Bullet Train is just.
I've heard good things.
Bullet Train, the writing, it's a great movie. Very, very entertaining.
Bullet Train,
is it like a Guy Ritchie movie?
It is. It's very much like a Guy Ritchie movie.
Okay. Anderson movie. That was this year, right? Or what's that? 2021 French Dispatch by Wes Anderson.
Oh, I don't know. Wes Anderson did another. I didn't even know he did another movie.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why this year is horrible.
So
even
that's interesting.
Got ignored.
Go around, everybody. List a couple of good movies you saw this year.
I didn't really see many movies this year, like in the theater. I just watched what I like, so I didn't really see many. Bullet Train, I guess, was decent, but
well, for me,
that's the only one I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
I saw. Did you guys see Top Gun?
No.
Nobody's seen Top Gun.
Top Gun, yeah. Top Gun was a good movie. Bullet Train and Top Gun would be the two.
I was not a fan of the original Top Gun, so I wasn't one of those people who's for 35. Please make another Top Gun movie. But it was fucking phenomenal. It was just really fucking good. The Northman. I thought that was a really. That was. I forgot. I saw Nope. I went to the theater to see it, and I don't even remember it. I don't even remember it. I thought about it the other day because it came up in conversation, and I'm like, I don't even fucking remember it.
I got two. I said Clerks 3 because me, Mike. I'm stuck with like all the horror community stuff. I don't give a shit about Halloween Ends or any of that crap. Two films. I already mentioned Clerks 3. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio on Netflix.
Really? I've been debating whether to see that or not.
Yeah, me and Mike, we've been talking about it. I saw it right after work, and I got home 4:15. I turned on Netflix. Me and my daughter watched it, and we loved it. And I want to watch it again. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it.
That's Jim Henson's studio that did the
stop animation
and the animation and all that for it. I know it's affiliated with Jim Henson, but I'd like to see that. I heard
great voice cast. Ewan McGregor's the cricket. It's not Disney. It has nothing to do with Disney at all.
It's the actual book. It's the actual.
It's based on a story, and it's really good. It's really dark. The visuals that Del Toro has, just when you see what the whale looks like, and it's really amazing, and it's a period piece. It takes place in the 1930s, I believe, 30s or 40s, and
really,
it's really,
it was
really
written
good.
in the 1800s. The book itself.
Well, okay, it takes place during the war. I don't remember if it's World War I or World War II, but it is
World War. Yeah.
But it's really, really good. Highly recommend.
Check that out.
No, it's another one. It's another one that's long. It's like 2 hours, but I really liked it.
One of the other.
Anybody see The Woman King? Is that The Woman King?
No, I'm curious about that because I was looking up some research on that.
Yeah, that was a good movie. That was very entertaining. That would be in my top 5.
That was a historical.
I don't know about that. I don't know if it's historical or not.
It is historical, but
it's probably based on something. But I wouldn't assume the story is like.
Oh, okay.
It's like an alternate history.
I see. Okay.
Basically, the reason that they had an all-female army at one point was because they killed and sold into slavery so many men that they had to hire women to be soldiers because the men were being sold into slavery. But the truth is that that female army was raised in order to continue taking slaves and selling them. So
I did read about that.
They were slavers.
I did read about that they were slavers. It's interesting.
If anybody gets a chance, one of the better films I saw this year, and I covered it on the show, was After Yang. And it's possible that Colin Farrell may get they say he may be he may get nominated twice for Best Actor. One for this Banshees of Inisherin.
That one was terrible.
Which I didn't see, but if you get a chance, see After Yang, and that's a sci-fi movie that he's in, and it's really fucking good. It's almost like Terrence Malick made a sci-fi film without the voiceovers. It's just a beautiful fucking story. And then there was other You Won't Be Alone, of course, with Noomi Rapace, Goran Stilevskis. But that hasn't even dropped here, and Australia submitted that as a best feature. It's a horror film for the Academy Awards, but who knows if it's going to get nominated? Probably not.
If it's a horror movie, it probably won't. So.
It's almost like a Malick film. It's almost like a Malick film. That's a horror film with Noomi Rapace. It's so fucking good. It's Macedonian.
Macbeth this year too, or was that last year?
That was last year. That's on Apple.
Oh, I wanted to see that, the Denzel one. Yeah.
That's Brendan Gleeson, Francis McDormand. Yeah.
I want to see that. Yeah. Because that's one of the Coen brothers. It's not both of them.
Yeah, I think it's Joel Coen or something like that. It's just
which movie?
Macbeth. Denzel Washington doing Macbeth.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the one with Michael Fassbender.
Oh yeah, that's supposed to be good. And Marion Cotillard.
Yeah, that's supposed to be gory. That's supposed to be a gory fucking Macbeth.
Well, Macbeth is gory. That's why it's an awesome play. It's the closest thing Shakespeare got to straight horror. I mean, it's a great play. I was in it. It was great. It was cool play. It's one of my favorites. I would pick that over Hamlet, like to teach, because it's just cooler. But
Oh yeah, definitely cooler. But
Hamlet's just so beat to death, and I'm tired of it.
So, does anybody have anything they want to plug? Ryan, what you got?
Nothing
Anything?
right now.
Nothing right now. Okay, no productions. Okay.
Nope.
Hee Haw. Any shows coming up?
Otto's Jacket. Go to Jacket of Otto NJ. Like us, and we'll start our gigs come the warmer weather. So look for us.
Okay, sounds good. Eric, what you got coming up?
We got a
tattoo.
Underworld is coming to my channel very soon after the new year. Podcast wise, me and Alex for Two Beer Losers. It's kind of funny we keep bringing up the Twilight Zone in this episode, because me growing up and him growing up, Sci-Fi Channel New Year's Eve would always play a 24-hour marathon of the Twilight Zone. We're going to try to upload it Friday, because everyone's going to be out fucking Saturday night. You know what I mean? We're discussing Twilight Zone, the movie from 1983. The one with Vic Morrow. Trust me, we'll be talking about John Landis, but Scatman Crothers, John Lithgow, all that stuff. So that's the only thing we really had planned.
Footage, you can see that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's where I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I was just curious, so I went down that rabbit hole, and I was like, holy shit. I mean, it's like watching like that Faces of Death or something. I mean, but this is like legit. Yeah. Like when you see the helicopter and just it's
it's the footage that they had to show during the trial.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
But that's all we got planned. We just thought it would be kind of fun nod to our childhood to talk about Twilight Zone the movie for our New Year's Eve episode.
Yeah, isn't Dan Aykroyd in that?
Yes, in the very beginning and the very end. He's with Albert Brooks. You want to see something really scary? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Dan Aykroyd.
Rod, you got anything coming up? Any productions?
Nothing here. Nothing right now. I'm taking a little break for now, so I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. All right. I have some things coming up, but they're still in the works. Eric, I'd like maybe you and Julia to get back maybe in the next couple of weeks.
Sure.
I'll send you guys some flicks. And she's got that idea for that one zombie movie. And if you guys want to join it, but I can't remember the name of the movie.
I'll have to go back. I'll have to go back. I know I put it in my Tubi queue, but I'll have to go back to the episode because I've already forgotten what the name was.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but I saw it too. It's this weird, super intense zombie movie with barely any fucking zombies in it. But it's so fucking scary. And I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Yeah, that, and I've got some other ideas. I want to get to Pinocchio, but I don't think I'm going to get to it, at least to cover on the show. I saw a really good, that vampire movie I was telling you about, The Invitation, and then it fell apart in the last 5 fucking minutes. Fell apart in the last 5. Did you see it, Bill?
No, but I remember talking about it last time.
Yeah, it fell apart. Too bad. All right, well, I guess that's it. Once again, Happy New Year. It's been a year. It's been 365 days, and every fucking day of it. So let's hope for a little well, let's hope for a good 2023.
Yep.
It would be nice.
All right.
Yeah. And there we go. All right. My thanks to everybody. D. Ryan Daly, Hee Haw Bengal, Eric from Internet. Hey, Internet, Eric here, and Radical One. We will see you again.
Fly, fly.
That's right. Let's get to 14 and 2. We'll see you all again in 2023. All the best, everybody.
Cheers. Be safe.
Later.